Okay, first order of business are the select board minutes for April 17th and April 24th. I would entertain a motion to accept those.
I will accept the minutes of April 17th and the 24th.
A second?
Also,
Thank you, Jim. Any discussion?
I have a correction to make to April 17th minutes. But that actually is not necessarily a correction as well. Acknowledgement of the mistake. When I quoted the statute, temporary executive session,
Yeah.
I quoted the incorrect statute. Does that mean? The one I should have quoted is the one that's actually documented here and was on the agenda. And that was to discuss attorney-client communications. I accidentally quoted the employee evaluation statute. So just want to put that there.
Okay.
Washington. Yes, it was the 24th.
Okay, Jim, under the old business rules of procedure, if I read this correctly, we tabled for the motion to accept as well as we did not talk about the amendment as well.
Well, I think we discussed them in the
Yeah.
table.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we've got the whole thing to address tonight. Any other comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item of business are the orders for the accounts payable up through May 1st. The motion to accept the orders up to May 1st. And second.
Second.
Thank you, Dan. Any discussion?
Is right now it's off. Next year, we pay for fertilizer.
So we pay half and Carlton Land pays half.
So also 60%.
Oh, I'm sorry, 60-40, right, 60-40. So we're paying 60%, Carlton's paying 40%. So the bill is a touch over $2,000.
I don't want to get picky on this, but was there a soil test done to know what amendments needed to be added?
Don't know that, it's the field over by the parking lot.
Yeah.
He does it every year.
The question, yeah, I know, the question that was brought up to me was, if he's getting the hay off it to sell, why are we paying for the fertilizer?
I don't know that answer, Clyde. It's
There
been
must
that
be
way.
some sort of agreement somewhere.
There must be, it's been that way since I've been here. I had the discussion before about it, and I do not know the true answer on that. So yes, it's probably was previous administrations that allowed it.
We're very happy to see the field used that way. But I also have had the same questions. Morgan, what is the payment to for the Three Corners intersection? I'm not familiar with that entity.
GPI, they're engineers. Yes. Yeah, so I submitted the engineer's bill and the Two Rivers bill for the barn repainting, so that money will come back to the town.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor of accepting the invoices up to May 1st, say aye. Motion passes. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Hearing none, moving on to public comments. Are there any public comments? I have some. First, I would like to thank the Energy Committee for organizing the Hartland Earth Day event. I thought it was well attended, and I learned some things. And so thank you for everyone that put work into that. Second item, it was brought to my attention that during the recent town meeting, when we, the select board, thanked town volunteers and town employees, that I missed thanking the staff of the library. It was not my intention to do so, and I apologize for not including the library staff. Over the years, I've developed a theory that one can tell a lot about a town by their library. When I look at our town library, I see an active community building, a library staff that's eager to help people, a library staff that with the library board of trustees are moving with us today. Let's see Sarah, but Dan Nelson is here. Dan, I wonder if you could come forward and maybe like to say a few words.
Sure, my name's Dan Nelson. I've been in Hartland since 2014. And I saw the posting on the community listserv a few weeks ago, looking for volunteers to ask to be considered to serve on the Connecticut River Joint Commissions. I think you've got the statement that I wrote about my interest and background. It's something I'm pretty passionate about. The only thing I'd add to what I wrote is, I recognize the importance of consulting closely, communicating frequently with the Conservation Commission, because I think the roles of both groups overlap quite a bit, certainly reporting back to you. And then an area of personal interest that I think relates to the mission of the Joint Commissions is kind of appropriate recreational access to riverfront. It's a great asset for a community to be located on a river. We've got some access, but be nice to over time think about what would be appropriate if it made sense for there to be more access or improved access.
Any questions for Dan? The rumor has it that you just recently built a canoe.
Built a couple kayaks, yeah. COVID project.
Okay. If there are no questions, Dan, in executive session tonight, we'll discuss the two candidates, yourself and Sarah, and take an action.
Great, thank you. And I should just say, I think it's great that you're two candidates. To me, the most important thing is that the town's well represented on the commission. So I'd be delighted with whichever way you go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Great. Should I jump in now? Sorry, this is Sarah Wood.
Oh,
Yes,
Sarah,
Sarah, please.
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I meant to attend in person, but I wasn't able to. I am Sarah Wood and I'm on the Hartland Conservation Commission, and I had put my name forward too for the Joint Commission. I have a long background in kind of working on governance issues, kind of at the national, subnational, kind of state level, on a variety of different kind of protection and conservation issues. I currently serve on the Hartland Conservation Commission. And my interest with this was just to make sure that we had good representation, because I think that, stakeholder, it's a really big watershed area. Joint commissions are complicated. I think it's really important for the Upper Valley to have good representation for the different areas that the watershed management kind of needs, and protection issues have been getting more complicated bioregionally and across state lines. And I just wanted to make sure there was really good representation. That being said, I definitely would like my name in. However, I think it's also good for the town to get lots of people engaged in these issues. And so I don't need to serve on the Hartland Conservation Commission and the Connecticut, as long as I feel like there's good representation, I think we're happy. And so I definitely want to keep my name in, but just so the select board knows, I do feel like it's really good for the town to have more people engaged in these kind of issues. I'm thankful that, we have somebody else stepping up as well. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Sarah? Sarah, thank you for throwing your name into the ring for this, and also thank you for serving on the Conservation Commission. I think you said it very well in your opening remarks. It's good to have volunteers in town, and I appreciate your work in this area. Okay. Thank you again, and Sarah, we're going to move on to the next agenda item. As folks know, we recently looked at the North Hartland Schoolhouse as someone approached the town to use the schoolhouse as a woodworking shop. For various reasons, we withdrew from that discussion, and a few people have approached Martin with the concept of creating a committee to look at how to use the North Hartland Schoolhouse, which is currently heated in electricity, but vacant. Ariel, do you want to come forward and discuss?
Hi, Ariel Arwen. Let's see. So it just seemed a natural progression since you considered that. Following Stacy's comments with her familiarity of the use of the park from the kids, and so just wondering going forward if it would make sense to have a committee with people from Hartland and some select board representation. So we went to see it a couple of weeks ago. They were repairing some glass. Martin said I could come, and I invited a couple other North Hartland friends. Rebecca Gordon, who's I think chair of the planning commission right now, and Craig Smith. And so, tossing around ideas. Jim was there that day. So that's about it. I mean, I'm not even a North Heartlander. Stacy's here. But I said to Martin that I would speak to it because it just seemed like a natural thing to think about.
Thoughts and comments?
Well, I mean, just, I went out of curiosity with Martin just to get my first look. He had not seen the building before. And to be put into use, of public use, would take some renovation and probably ADA access. I mean, so the committee might not be a bad idea. Because you could put money into it and do something with it, right? You could sell it, use the money to do something else for North Hartland, or just let it kind of decay into the ground, which is what it's doing now. So whatever the ideas are, I mean, if the committee got together, I think you'd have to come with ideas and cost proposals to try to make sense out of it. But I mean, just looking at it, it needs outside rehab, needs new windows, needs inside rehab, needs ADA access. The roofing material looks pretty good, what's underneath it, no idea. Bathrooms will need to be redone, if you really put that building to good use.
Then another option is to raise it and make a pavilion there, like
Yeah.
a shelter. Yeah, so there's a lot of different. And if it was sold, the land would have to be partitioned off, right?
Right, yeah.
So anyway, I'll go sit down, yeah.
Ariel, have you thought at all about committee membership and roughly a time period that you would want to spend on this, assuming you would be on the committee?
Maybe, maybe not. I sent an email to Stacy and Kim Gibbs. She organized a community party there 2 summers ago, and then it had to get canceled because of COVID. And I wrote Anna Mejia and Craig and Rebecca. So I just wanted a few people in North Hartland to know that this was happening tonight. And, you know, as far as how many people would be on it, I think it'd be great if we had a bunch, but who knows how many will. So I don't know if you guys want to delineate about how big a committee would make sense. And your question about time, how long the committee would take to evaluate different things?
Yeah.
Great question. I have no idea. I mean, I see it as your involvement being pretty major, because this is you know, something that's been there and it's been heated minimally for all these years, and it makes sense to think about it.
Okay.
So I don't know. No, maybe, do you want to talk it out, Stacy? Can I?
Thanks.
Thanks, Ariel. I did get Stacy Bradley. I did get Ariel's email. I just unfortunately haven't had time to respond back to her. You know, I think some kind of commission or committee would probably be a good idea. Having been, it's going to take probably a few months to sort of flesh out, you know, and get specific cost ideas. I would imagine, having been on ARPA, this is sort of just one specific, but I could see where it might take, you know, 4 to 6 months with a committee to kind of really thoroughly look at and dig into. If they're only going to meet once or twice a month to be able to do that. I would say whoever would want to be on it would probably be what you'd have. I personally don't have any bandwidth to take up anything on any committee until I get through the end of June right now. Right in the thick of the weeds with trying to get our grand list rolled out, and then I'll roll right into grievance. So, you know, whether it would take you that amount of time, I would certainly like, you know, would consider being involved in it, but, you know, would not be able to do anything until July.
Sure.
So it would be helpful if we asked Martin to maybe try to come up with a scope for us. And he can run it by some folks in town or whatever, but as a decades-long bureaucrat, a committee for consent of a committee without real clear direction is not going to go particularly well. And so I think it would be helpful, and I don't think we should be usurping our responsibility and asking them what should be. So I think we should give direction to the committee since it is town property. So my suggestion is maybe next meeting or whatever, if you could think about it and run it by a couple folks and we can talk about it.
Sure, absolutely, I'd be glad to.
So let's see if I understood. So you're just talking about putting a scope together of what the committee
For the
responsibilities.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and I think at that point, we can also brainstorm membership of the committee and how we would, how we would represent ourselves as well as the cross section of the community and North Hartland that's involved.
Yeah. And possibly a planning commission member, because there's some overlap.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Okay, any other question, thoughts on the idea of the committee to look at the schoolhouse in North Hartland? Okay, we are moving on. Next item is rules of procedures. Rules of procedure. This is a document that the select board adopted a year ago for the first time, as we had no operating agreement. So, in our packets, there are both the rules of procedure that we embraced last year and signed, we agreed to sign it every year, as well as Jim has presented a few proposed changes to those. So I don't know my procedure to know whether or not we should discuss the changes first or ask for a motion to adopt the rules and procedures.
I think it might be helpful if Jim went over his proposed amendments first.
Yeah, so I think you have a page that shows, you know, the VLCT boiler with paragraph, as well as our current paragraph, which is very close to the same. And then the proposed paragraph, which really is the second half of that proposal, that's the change, right? And what the change is designed to do, really two things. One is to have us kind of discuss what's going to be on the next agenda at this meeting, right? So at the end of this meeting, we talk about future agenda items, we brainstorm, and have some ideas of maybe what the next agenda will look like. Now, 2 weeks go by, and ultimately, you know, Martin and Phil will figure out what the agenda is going to be for the next meeting. It's the chair's discretion. The last piece of that paragraph is really to catch the occasional thing that comes up where something comes up before the agenda is published. It feels like an important topic. It's raised with the select board, and the wording there is if 2 or more members of the body feels strongly that it should be added for that next meeting, we should add it. So that's really the change. So
Jim, 1 or 2 questions. You also have changes in the second sentence.
I think it's around email, right?
Yeah.
Notification.
Are we getting ourselves in trouble if we're basically saying we're going to send an email to the entire member of the board? To
My understanding, well, first of all, residents can send emails before, or that's just correspondence. Right? We shouldn't have discussions about, you know, requests or anything outside of the meeting. You know, so somebody says, you know, we want to tear down North Hartland School, we shouldn't be debating that, like, or we should come to the meeting. But residents can reach out to us. So the second thing is the one thing that I believe that we can work on via email outside an open meeting is the agenda. You are allowed to work on an agenda for the next meeting outside of an open meeting.
I did look at tonight's agenda and was realizing it's fairly dynamic. That wasn't until earlier in the week that some of the items we knew could be on the agenda were carried over. So I understand the concept, and I like the concept of basically suggesting at the end of the meeting what's coming. But
I mean, it can't be a firm agenda, it's just a discussion, right? The firm agenda has to be done closely with the actual.
Okay, so my question still stands with my colleagues. How do we proceed? Do do we vote on this change and then vote
Will
on
be voted on and discussed, the motion passed.
So you're suggesting motion to
Make a motion
Make a
to accept
change.
the change
and
and
then make a
then,
motion if it passes or not,
yeah, or open it up. for
Readopt.
discussion.
Okay, I'll ask for a motion then to discuss and approve or disapprove the changes to the agenda. Okay, item 1 under D, is it? So,
Yeah,
yeah,
So let me see if I can word that. Back up in there. So section D, okay. So I make a motion that we amend section D agendas, item 1, to include the submitted text that allows the select board to discuss next meeting's agenda at the current meeting. And, add agenda items if 2 or more board members feel it's important.
I'll second the motion. So we have on the table for discussion,
yeah.
right? And then we can proceed from
All
there.
in favor, say aye.
Yeah.
No, you can't say aye, because we don't have the discussion. You can't vote yet.
Okay,
Yeah.
no.
So, Jim, starting with the second sentence, what are you trying to get there that's already in the existing policy regarding those who wish to be added to? So you actually, they can only contact the town manager by email? So you have now only email.
What I was trying to do is carry forward that sentence from the way it exists today. Right, and just make it known that email is the way to contact the town manager. So the sentence is already there today.
Right, but you're limiting it on the email, so what if someone doesn't have email?
Yeah, that would be my concern too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine, we can take those 2 words out.
You'd be actually removing the phrase,
Yeah,
because if you remove the email and copy, you can't copy the board, because there's no email.
I mean, what do people normally do today? I would think today, people normally contact them via email if they want something related to the agenda.
There, we do a lot of lost property tax bills, and we're emailing property tax bills all the time. And I don't know if it's going to the phone, an iPod, a computer, a laptop. Who knows where it's going? So I think as far as the email goes, most people have an email, I believe, if they have a cell phone.
But we can say via email or in writing.
Mhm.
Yes, yeah, or they can fax it to us.
So let's just play this out. So I contact the town manager and say I want to be on the board, and then I'm copied, then the board is copied.
Yeah.
And the town manager says, agenda's really busy, can't have it this meeting. But the board members say, no, I want it on this meeting. What's going on there?
And if but this is the catch, right? So normally you schedule it, you get to it, right? It's tough, you get to it when you can get to it, right? It may not be the next meeting, right? You're gonna balance the meetings out. But if it's a topic that board members in general feel strongly about that it needs to be discussed because it's time sensitive, that's what this is meant to catch, not just kind of the everyday stuff.
So you need 2 board, he wants 2 board.
I'm not there.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Because the next sentence then says the agenda for the next meeting shall be discussed and drafted at the end of each meeting. I get a sense of mistrust between the board and management. It just seems though if we're going to discuss future agenda items at the end of each meeting, why do we then have to be copied during an interim time when it would be up to the town manager and the chair, because that's one of the few and only duties the chair has? I guess I don't get it.
Right, so I guess the issue is there are occasional issues, right, or there have been occasional issues. And again, this is not 99%, this is 1%, right? Where board members have felt strongly that an item should get onto the agenda. And it's been late, right, it's been, a few days before. And, we didn't have a process to make that happen. So this is trying to plug that hole. Right? I honestly don't see this happening a lot, but it's a tool to make us kind of more collaborative when something arises.
Okay. And as I said at the last meeting, I'm going to oppose the 2 or more. I disagree with that. I don't like it.
For what reason?
Yeah, the last one.
No, what was it, what bothers you about it?
I don't like emailing going on amongst board members in that. I think it should be more an open session. So you already have something in the top where you say you can contact people, contact the town manager. And then on top, it just to me feels like, and I think you used the past tense, in the past, board members were not feeling as though they were being heard by the administration. And my short time being on the board, I feel as though that isn't occurring. And 2, I don't find it to be particularly collegial when you have to do that. I feel like we're setting ourselves up to have conflict with the administration.
Tom, I also read that second sentence that those who wish to be added to the meeting as a person that wants to be added to the meeting, not an agenda. Someone wants to come in to discuss the matter. Was that your intent?
That's how it was
Well,
written.
that's
That's their wording too. But those who
Okay.
wish and those, it's how it's,
right.
it was previously.
It's really after that sentence.
So what, yeah, like you did
But then the second, okay, and then the second part of copy the board to request the approval. Okay, that's what's different.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mandy.
Yeah.
Any other discussion?
Well, I mean, I understand Tom's point. And I think you're right in that we've had success. This board's had success working through agendas, has been a problem at all. But at the same time, past results are not indicative of future performance, right? So I think it protects future boards. If 2 members of the board feel strongly about something, they can't get shut out.
Back to the second sentence, those who wish to be active, why, without knowing, so, Jimmy Smith says, I want to be added to the agenda. What does Jimmy want to do with the agenda? And what's the difference between Jimmy Smith doing that and having public comment?
That's VLC text, it's already.
Well-
procedure. That's not new. The email portion.
I mean, if there's a rationale for why Jimmy wants to be, I'd be more comfortable, but just because, Jimmy likes talking meetings, I have no idea.
Well, again, it is great discretion for the board to share with that one, so I will share. So, and the first 3 sentences are really what we already have today.
Okay, any other discussion?
Are we allowed to talk about it?
I'm sorry.
Are we allowed to say?
All in favor of the amendment, say aye. All against, say nay.
Yeah,
Nay. The nays have it. So let's go on to adopting the whole of the rules of procedures for the municipal boards. Rules and commissions. I need a motion to accept.
I'll make a motion to accept the rules of procedure for municipal boards, committees, and commissions for the town government.
All in favor, say aye. Any discussion? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you. We. Board meeting.
we'll ask you to. We can always change these things in the future. No, I just want to say, if things change, I think it's our responsibility then to change our rules of procedure so that we can do what reflects best for the town. And if things aren't working, then, you know, we need to make those changes. So.
Okay. Martin, we need a clean copy. We can do it next meeting to sign.
Sure.
And date.
Okay. I will look for the clean copy.
Okay. Okay. Policing and parking. Here's the next item. Martin, do you want to update the board on what we're hoping to do?
Lieutenant O'Donnell is on vacation for 2 weeks, but he's getting a contract together. We did the contract for 40 hours because we.
Is that 40 hours a month?
A month, yes, I'm sorry, it's 40 hours a month.
So, but why not do the 60? We know they're not gonna meet it. We know we'll have money left over.
Yeah.
Right, but if they get to a point where they do have to.
He said he can go up to 60, but if we do it at 40, because we're coming into the summer months. We're gonna meet with the town manager in Windsor and see where they look at for a contract, and maybe a mixture between the two. We might be able to put something together so we can get to that 60 hours.
Or a mixture of the third entity.
Or the third entity with Ryan Palmer, with the Windsor County Sheriff. If we can get all three and we can get to the 60 hours, that's the ultimate goal. But at this point, I'd like to get a contract in place.
I agree with that.
Yeah, we had agreed to go after that contract at the last meeting.
Yeah. So I should have it in hand hopefully next week. I'll get it signed and get it right back. So July 1st, we will have a contract with the Vermont State Police. We're in hopes to add maybe some more hours from the other two viable.
Right. And just, so it was 60 a month, now it's 40.
Correct.
But the board doesn't think that we should just keep it at 60.
Jim, I actually thought we said 60 the last time.
I'll email him. I can fix it to 60 because he hasn't done the contract yet. So I'll send him an email. So when he gets back from vacation, it'll be the most current email.
We can pick whatever number we want. We know we're gonna get.
Right.
I know we're gonna have money left over.
Yeah, that does not affect our budget for.
And then realistically, if these two can pick up extra, they're probably
Above
gonna
and
be more
beyond.
than happy
Yes.
to say,
Yes.
okay, and relinquish the extra.
Exactly. Absolutely.
It just leaves the door open if somehow they recruit and hire and there's somebody that wants to take on more work.
Yeah.
3 hours a week.
I'm always smiling because we,
It's not
I will fix that.
Okay, in addition, we talked about the strategy of the townwide meeting as well as creating a committee. And my colleague, Mr. Kennedy, sort of had me on my toes because what I would like the committee to be doing is to explore the requirements for the town for safety and policing. I feel strongly that we have to do that. would have to take a look at the past work that was done before my time, so 7 or 8 years ago, when they looked at state police contracting, I believe Windsor. But begin to gather information and use that information for to a community-wide meeting to engage the entire community in discussion of what policing and safety is. So what I'd like to tonight is to sort of talk a little bit amongst ourselves about how to form that committee. I've already been thinking of resources for that group to have professional people come in to talk to the group, to assist them.
Just this too, we don't know.
Not moving. I think I got it. I'm not 100% sure, but I think I got it.
Okay, is there a raised hand or something?
No raised hand.
Okay. Before we go on, actually talking about how to do it.
I.
Can you mute, would you mute yourself, please?
Yeah,
Can you guys get that to mute?
not everyone is muted.
No, I can't.
Everyone's muted.
All right, there you go. They're all muted now. Okay, sorry about that. You were saying about policing?
Just a general discussion about is this an agreeable approach to take and thoughts on, then let's go on thoughts about the committee structure.
I mean, I think it's fine, committee is fine. You could do a committee, or I guess you could have to do public hearings as well, would you?
I'm not sure what you mean by a public hearing.
I mean, if you're gonna, if you have a committee start with Schoolhouse, but I think you'd want to open it up to get more input from the public at some point.
Correct, right? Correct.
Or you could just do public hearings without a committee. So I think either or would be fine. It's just, I guess, would one be quicker or more effective than that?
I thought we were going to have a short-term and a long-term strategy. So we're going to have a long-term strategy of what we wanted and what we considered to be policing. And then our shorter-term strategy was going to try to have supplemental assistance on a short-term basis, whether it's 6 months, whatever it is. And we were going to do that, but that most likely would not be the type of engagement that we would have on the longer term, because we need to.
Right. And Tom, I believe we've actually started on that first portion of the short-term strategy.
Okay.
By agreeing to go with the state police and then filling in. And until we get a little more legwork and background, we need more information to bring to the board, and I think next week we're on track to sort of get some of that information.
So I just want to make sure when you're interviewing the parties, so it's a equal playing field, is we're asking the same questions. You know, I'm interested in, for instance, certification of who's going to be doing the patrolling, those types of things.
Yep. So that's the list we should put together before we go out, like the scoping.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, we're certainly in the gathering phase. We haven't done that.
So which me is doing a long-term piece, and we're doing a short.
Yeah. Clyde, any thoughts? Every time I hear the word committee, I'm just thinking it's a death knell for something. You've got to find out where what people want for policing. And that will certainly end up being it's kind of like our little project down here. The majority wanted it, so, and you're gonna have different opinions, certainly. You're gonna do what's best for the majority. Those of us that live out in the woods. Randy, your thoughts?
I would agree. I think that formal committee to kind of formulate what the long-term plan is for the town, what would be best for the town, whether it's, the sheriff's county, Windsor, or some other avenue. I think that makes sense.
And we publicly have said before, depending upon the length of that requirements list, up goes the cost if it's a long list. I have been thinking of traditional 2 select board members. And then I have some ideas of other people's and community members that have approached me, asking to be involved. And I know Mandy has a background and interest in this, so I'm wondering if we could turn to her to chair the committee. So, other thoughts on structure? If there are none, then Mandy and I can chat and meet, and we'll come back to you with a plan with both a little bit of, much like we handled the roads committee, to sort of say how long we're going to meet, what our scope document was, and suggested membership.
So I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but doesn't Tom also have experience with investigating regional solutions?
Mandy will do a great job. This is talking about the long terms.
Yes. Sure.
I mean, we don't have to decide today, it's just something to think about.
Yeah, I'll chew on it a little bit, Mandy, and sort of, I think Tom just said yes, but I'm sure.
I think I did hear a reluctant yes.
Okay. Brian, did you want to add anything? We have this, we've had a general discussion that we are going to sort of get a requirements list going. You've heard us talk about the interim piece, but that's about all we know right now. I didn't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I mean, it sounds like you have a plan. It doesn't, I don't know what us adding anything is gonna help with that. I think we've had discussions at length about what we can offer immediately for stepping in and filling that void, for, providing 80 hours of service for what you're paying 64, but it doesn't seem like that's been all that fruitful. So I'm just we'll sit back and let you guys figure out what your goals and stuff are, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay. Thank you. Any other points on this? Going on to new business, Sumner Falls Ecological Assessment. I believe we have.
Hello, my name is David Sleeper. I'm a member of the Conservation Commission, and I'm co-chair with Guy Crosby of the commission's work on the Sumner Falls recreation area. The select board approved a really wonderful management plan for Sumner Falls. It's aspirational. It thinks of the future. It's figuring out ways to increase the educational uses of the falls, and all the incredible recreation, the historical things happening at the falls. But it's aspirational, and it's just a plan. It's a 10-page piece of paper. So we've been working on the Conservation Commission on how to implement the plan, knowing that we don't have a lot of money, knowing that things take time, and we've come up with a sort of 3 phases for doing that. And phase 1, and that's really what we're going to talk about tonight very quickly. But phase 1 involves doing assessments of the property, especially natural resources and forestry assessments, doing trail mapping and planning, getting all this work done so that we can move to phase 2. And this is when we actually start bringing tools into the woods. And we start building trails, taking out trees, making trails accessible if possible, working with experts to do that. And then that would lead to phase 3, and this is, don't worry about it, everybody, it's further down the line, because this is when we would start looking at capital improvements. Improvements to the roads, improvements to the parking areas, the picnic areas. Do we need a new entranceway? Do we need a new gate? Should the property be open year round if we're trying to encourage things like cross-country skiing and other winter activities, things like that. That's all in the future. We can't do anything until we get phase 1 done. And we're looking at 3 things as phase 1, and we hope we can get them done pretty quickly. One is an ecological assessment by the Vermont Center for Eco Studies. And I think you have a description of what that ecological assessment would be. And then the second phase, after we get this in hand and figure out what's on the property, what are the important natural areas, what are things we need to protect, then we would actually start consulting with professionals who know something about building trails. And we've had some discussions already with the Upper Valley Trails Alliance, who have worked with lots of organizations on building really terrific trails. And then third, in both of those things, the ecological assessment and the trail planning and mapping would give us with a lot, some additional information that could be put on an interactive GIS map that's already been created by Gary Tracher. And so at the end of this phase 1 process, we will have a sort of a living, breathing map of Sumner Falls where we can see what's there in terms of the ecology, where trails should go, there's amazing things already on that map, and we'll make it available to the public. So what we would like the select board to consider tonight is, one, just to approve or at least hear our discussion about what we mean by this phase 1 plan. And what again is the assessments, the mapping, and the assessments and the mapping and the planning, things like that. And 2, we would like to get the folks at Vermont Center for Eco Studies working as soon as possible. And they're ready to do the work. We do have a proposal from them. It's a proposal that would cost $2,700. We have successfully raised the money from 4 citizens to cover the entire $2,700, but we do need a contract in place. And I would like to start working with Vermont Center for Eco Studies and Martin on putting that contract together. So that we can discuss if you like what the VCE study would be. But basically it does some very interesting things. It's a review of the significant biodiversity areas at the falls. And we all know what vernal pools are, but we don't know where wildlife trails are in the area. We don't know what the plants, where the plant communities are and tree community. We don't know which of the communities, except for a few, are actually endangered species and should be really protected and then eventually singled out and talked about in the future. So Vermont Center for Eco Studies, which has done this sort of work many times, would review existing information they can get from state and other records. They would visit the property, they would walk the property, see what we've gathered in the past, and just so they can get all this information together. We also asked them to come up with a plan for working with volunteers. These days, volunteers use all sorts of, they can use their iPhones and to do these ecological assessments going out, out on the property. And these can be terrific educational events, but there are also ways to figure out what's there when you can get people there. I know Rob Andrig has done these before, so they want to talk about that. And we also have some ideas about where some of the trails might go based on some of the historical records that we've discovered, especially that Gary's discovered using his satellite imagery. There's some old historic roads on the property, and we're thinking, boy, this would be a great trip. This would be terrific. But we need to hear what the conservation biologists say about that. And then one final thing is, and again, it's not going to cost us anything, but we've been in discussions with the 2 county foresters, and they are eager and willing to work with us, and there's no charge for this, to do a forest management plan based on all this other stuff that's coming together. So we can decide, they can look at the health of the forest, and they can help us decide what tree species are here and how can we protect them, or do any species need to be removed? As we look at emerald ash borer coming in, does it make sense to take trees down now for safety reasons, or because this is where we might want to expand parking lots or put trails like that? So that's it in a nutshell. We would love for the select board to say, yes, go ahead and do this contract with Vermont Center for Eco Studies. Again, it is the cost of that is completely covered at this point. But we would love to get going as soon as we can. So
What's the acreage of the study area?
help me, Bob, is it the acreage of Sumner Falls?
I think it's 55 acres.
Yeah, 55 acres. It's if you've been there, it's amazing piece of property because it's very long and thin.
Right.
And as you just as you enter in the road, there's some terrific woodland areas you can walk in. As you get down toward the river and then along the river, it just goes straight up. Gary and I took that. We had one of his satellite things. We took that. There's no trail. We went straight up, and we almost lost David during that trip. But but there really are some amazing things. And thinking of the future, there are some things that are a little more complicated that we want to look at. The road that goes to the gravel pit is actually a road that is owned by the town. And so at some point, it might be interesting, and maybe it's just starting off in the winter months, to have access to that road so we can, again, have further access to the property. That's, again, all in the future. We'd like to get all our ducks in order and start with the Vermont Center for Eco Studies proposal and get them working on it.
Who's the contract with? Is it with the town or the conservation commission?
It would be with the town, isn't that correct? Yes.
Yeah, Tom, Martin has already been discussing some of the nuances here with the Conservation Commission. So especially since there are gifts involved, which are pretty exciting, and how that would be handled.
We think we figured out a relatively easy way to do that. And we've already talked to VCE about this. The 4 people who will cover the cost would actually make a donation to the Vermont Center for Eco Studies, and it would be earmarked for this specific project.
Okay.
So that way the funds don't have to flow through the town, and we don't have to deal with the tax implications for donors and things like that. So this would be pretty easy.
Okay.
So just a quick question on funding, because Rob's email about stated it a little differently. Is the entire 2,700 coming from gifts, or is some of that coming out of the operation budget for the Conservation Commission?
The entire $2,700 would come out of it.
Okay.
And the future work which would happen in phase 1, would come out of the budget, some from the budget, some from future gifts, and also utilizing the conservation fund as a way to borrow money to get started, and then we would intend to pay back the fund. So that's all we're thinking about right now is, and the total cost for phase 1 is we're thinking right now is about $3,900. And again, that would be, we're not asking you to approve anything now, but that would be covered with gifts, some money from the budget, and utilizing the conservation fund as a funding mechanism.
So I'd like to make a motion that we allow the Conservation Commission to move forward with their ecological assessment of Sumner Falls property
subject to approval by the acting town manager.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Well, thank you. This has been very exciting to be thinking about three phases and getting going on this one.
Well, thank you very much. It will be a fun project.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you want to.
I was gonna ask. Because the garden club has some money that they. Ooh, I'll talk to you. Talk to my wife. Okay, yeah, they do get some money.
Okay, now, a much less exciting item, the review of the personnel policy. I'm not sure what new changes are. I think we're all in agreement that we want to address our personnel policy. There's no questions about it in my mind. And the real question would be how to proceed. I failed to put something out tonight. I did go to the attorney that we're working with right now, John Fleisch, and he returned an estimate of what he imagined it would cost to look at what we have and just get feedback, to research a little bit, or to a third one was to write an entirely new one based on our requirements. I think the highest bid was $3,500, so we're not talking about. We are not talking about a lot of money there. So as a discussion point tonight, what are people's thoughts about how to proceed with this?
Well, I think whatever we do, there has to be some type of legal review, whether it's the LCT or John. So I'm looking on that. Just kind of the things that are in my head in terms of what we should be looking at. Maybe if we had this documented, it could have been helpful in the past, is, simply like an escalation process. I think there's an escalation process to the select board if there's a termination. That's well documented in the policy. But there's not an escalation process if there are other employee relationship issues or conduct issues. There probably should be, and it should probably be something like, go to your manager is not able to fulfill his duties, go to your manager's manager, goes, what is the process best for you?
I certainly would want to add a requirement of having performance reviews on a regular basis, which I think we're all surprised that they weren't. Tom.
So maybe as a first step, if the attorney could just outline where he sees weaknesses in the existing policy, just highlight those.
Okay.
And then we can go from there.
No, raise another issue. So I read through it recently and I thought, well, it's gonna be a little bit of work to figure this out. But the policy, the way it's stated now, only applies to employed staff, not elected staff. And there are some things in that policy that clearly do apply to elected staff, like vacation time benefits, things like that. So maybe that we need to kind of rewrite the policy to include both in the appropriate sections. One section that would not apply to elected staff is the termination process. Correct. But some of the other sections do absolutely apply. In prior communications with the LCT, we can enforce a code of conduct with all staff, right? Whether you're elected or employed, and we can do that in exchange for benefits, basically. So there's a
difference between a code of conduct and personnel policy.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
the code of conduct is embedded in the personnel policy.
Right. But I think elected officials would have to use a code of conduct. I would imagine.
You'd have to either adapt the policy or have a separate policy.
No, I agree. I think the policies are not good. And there's lots of models out.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I mean, I would think that if he does this, there must be some sort of model for other things that are pretty standard, right? That it would include the elected versus appointed.
Well, elected is a little bit simpler,
But they're
but they.
accustomed to, right.
But also, we need to recognize there can be recent court decisions that sort of change things. I know there have been some recent court decisions regarding town administrators and town managers. So yeah, I think it'd be a good idea.
Okay, so are we in favor of my approaching the attorney with the current document to sort of say where
I think that's a great first step.
where are the holes?
Just, side note, I'm happy to just research whatever VLCT has for boilerplates, just.
Yeah, I'll do the same, James, so we can be in sync on that one. Okay.
Martin, can you send a copy to everyone?
I'll be glad to.
Thank you.
You got it. I will send it tomorrow morning.
And then available on the website?
No.
Okay, are we good on the personnel policy?
Yeah, so I think we don't have to take an action, we're just in agreement that we need to.
Right. Yep.
Need to work on that. Okay, moving on to the capital program plan. Jim, this is an item that we've been wanting to discuss.
Yeah, I drafted a spreadsheet a while back, also in the summer time frame, kind of outlines the known projects, right? And our known, funding, right? But then you also have your unknown funding, which is grants, additional bonds that might go. And you've got to kind of map the projects that have to get done with the funding sources, right? And kind of the timeline of when they would need to get done. I think the first pass of that might be, like Martin and Bill, myself, who look at it and brainstorm based on what we know today, right? And we could present that. I mean, any plan you put together is not cast in stone for the next 5 years. It's going to be variable, but I think we need to know, right? We need to know, when do we have to replace the town highway? Right? We need to, rough cost estimate. We need a rough idea as of whether available funds to do it, or are we going to need a bond, right?
Jim, during our budget review planning phase, Mr. Ormson had a series of capital budget presentations. How does what you're thinking differ from what those documents are?
That was more of a list, right? And this would be more of a grid that said, all right, this project's going to get done in 2025. The funding sources list, right? This project's going
To
to
be
get done.
more comparable to the presentation that the fire chief gave.
So, exactly, like, so if you look at the fire department purchasing plan and funding plan, right, for equipment, it's spread out over a long period of time, all the line items are there. Right. So,
Okay.
and again, this would be it's a brainstorming session, it's a first draft, so we can present something to the board that this has been somewhat thought through, so we have an idea of, how much money do we have, how much do we need,
Right. And you've targeted the highway. Shouldn't we be maybe just start there, but we should be more global, just thinking about David Hall and Rec Center?
Yeah, we should have everyone should be on. Right. I just think, in terms of where's the data come from? I think right now it's Bill Martin, myself, and the engineers that are looking at data and all that stuff.
Right, we have 2 studies going on, one for the Rec Center, one for here. We have to still put together a request for proposal or request for whatever that is for a study for the Hartland Selectboard. Is that point?
So let's just, it's a framework for us, so we understand what has to be done. What kind of living, reading thing we would update every year.
Martin, your reaction?
I'm okay with it. I think it's a great idea. It gives us forethought of what's coming down, what we know we're gonna have to replace or what we're gonna have to do,
Yeah.
instead of a surprise, because the surprise is awful hard to come up with the money.
Right. Any other questions?
There's also a lot of, through the agency of commerce, municipal planning grants, and you can go through capital budget programming through that as well, if you wanted to get a little more money into it and maybe hire someone to help you with it. So that's an eligible activity.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Like you said, we can keep going, and if we hit a stumbling block, that'd be a great resource to move it forward.
And what was that? Let's look.
So the agency of commerce, the municipal planning grant program, I mean, you know, traditionally it's been town plans and zoning bylaws. I believe you, I think it's early fall, you apply. And the only prerequisite is you have to have an approved town plan.
Which we have.
Okay, good conversation, thank you. Let's go on to acting town manager update. Martin, it's yours.
All right. I've been in contact with Kevin O'Toole, who has been kind enough to do one more year for tax sales. He sent me a commitment letter to sign to move forward and a 40-page document to read and understand the proper process, which I was kind of familiar with, but this gave me the down and dirty of it. I'm going to sign it and send it back to him tomorrow. I have 6 properties that I have pinged. So I'm hoping late July, early August, we will have we'll either have a tax sale or everybody will be paid in full at the time. Yes, Jim?
Yeah, I know we can't predict. You have 6 now. Obviously, we'd like for the folks to come out and settle, but
Right. Last year we started 18 and ended up at 1. So the odds have been, in the year before we started at 22 and ended up at 1.
yeah, the year before that.
Yes, we did. Yeah, that was the first year. We had almost 25, I think, that year.
Okay,
So it's really come down.
thank you.
So,
But the delinquencies primarily fiscal year 2023, will they go back?
I have 3 2 years and 3 1 year. And the reason I went after one for the 1 year is they're over $4,000.
Okay. Yeah, folks have gotten multiple notices and.
Oh, every month. I send out a letter every month to them. And the ones that come back, I do a lot of research to find an address. You can ask Stacy. I'm always digging for addresses or phone numbers and we'll get them.
Out of the 6, how many of those? Out of the 6, how many do you want to clear and address them?
No, I always find the address. No, anything that comes back, we get the address and send it right back out. It usually doesn't come back.
And the notices say that if you don't pay, it's your problem.
They say their house is going up for tax sale. It specifically states that. I spoke with Chris Bumps with Vermont Trans District about the North Hartland bridges. So that bridge is over 100 or close to 100 years old. The front bridge is 25 years old. All wooden bridges in the state of Vermont per statute are 8 tons. That's all that's allowed. We have ours posted at 10,000 pounds. We do have one at the intersection. I went and checked that out. We have one at the intersection in front of each bridge. We have to sign 10,000 pounds. The select board does have the right to raise that limit. The problem is if you raise that limit, the bridge deteriorates faster.
Right.
So that's
16,000 pounds is the statutory limit for Vermont for that type of bridge.
That's correct.
As opposed to the 10.
Correct. I drove over the Queechee Bridge. I went over to visit Brandon the other day. And theirs is posted at 24,000 pounds, it's only 12 ton, and they have a cement. And they have a cement floor.
Well, the deck is,
The deck,
it's
yeah.
still wage of the bar built over it.
Right, yes. So that's why their bridge is at 24,000 pounds or 12 ton. So just an FYI. Three corners intersection?
Let me,
Oh, sorry.
let me move on.
Sure.
So the bridge itself was looked at in like 1995. It's bridge 22, it's the second bridge, it's not the original bridge, right? Back then, I think, if I'm trying to do this from memory, they thought it could hold 14,000 tons. But they also recommended to the town that an engineering evaluation be done on the trusses, which, as far as I know, 30 years later was never done. They believe the bridge could be, the trusses could be made to hold up to 40,000 pounds. So we got this kind of issue on Mill Street where you can't get an influence over that bridge right now. If you knew the true weight limit, right, and if the weight limit was the Vermont maximum, you can get an influence over the bridge. So that's been kind of a Mill Street residents issue, right, that they've talked to us about in the past. So I guess the real question is, how do we find out the real number? And when is the bridge gonna get worked on by V-Trans? Because it was supposed to be coming up, it was supposed to be programmed, I think, within the next.
Mr. Bum says he thinks they're supposed to look at it this year for sure.
So, help me, there are two bridges, one is
The first one is
historic and one is not.
We're correct.
So which is which?
The back one is historic, the front one is
The
20,
north
the
one
north
is,
one is historic, the front one was only 25 years old.
okay, which one are you
The
talking about?
back one, the 100-year-old
Okay.
bridge that was like
150-year-old bridge.
95.
Okay.
At what point does it become historic? Is that years? What's the?
50.
50 years? Thank you.
So. Full disclosure, district manager for the Greater Oak Valley Solid Waste District. And we're providing access over our property onto Quarry Road, which is a private road. And we have been cooperating with the town, but I spoke to Martin about this last week. Both Twin State Sand and Gravel and the district don't really want to see this be a permanent solution. And secondly, I think for safety of the residents on that side, other side of the bridges, we really need to do something. So I spoke with someone last week. And I gave Martin the name of another person, instructors in Montpelier to look at it, but I hate to say this, it may come to a point where we remove the historic bridge. We have to, we can't make it, but we need to raise the limit on that bridge. Or the town should consider taking over Quarry Road to that point and then upgrade that trail. And James, that's not, but right now, it's not a great option.
No, and even at 16,000 pounds, you're not getting a propane truck over that bridge.
No, it won't go over.
So are we talking, if we're looking for someone, again, to clarify, are we just looking at that historic bridge on the north side, or are we actually looking, there's weight limits on both bridges? So
Yeah, the weight limits, where those came from is unclear as well.
No, Mark said earlier,
It's state statute.
state statute, 6 tons.
8 tons.
State statute is 8 tons.
8 tons.
Bridges are posted to 5.
Right, we post them down a little bit less than,
In reading the 95 report, it seems like there was a 5-ton sign at the beginning of the road that somebody took and put on the bridge.
okay, well,
so I'll see if I can get Mr. Bunce to spend some time with me.
The email I sent, I think, I can forward it to you as well, Tom, may have the person's name from structures that's.
I will call And I'll see if Mr. Bunce will spend some time with me so I can dig deep into this and,
I think we need to try to be creative,
yeah,
keep the bridges if we can, but also get the weights.
So the 95 report, I think the option they arrived at was replace the one that's there.
I thought Dave was doing something last, when we were negotiating, I thought he was having some study done.
well,
There was
so
an assessment.
there's an inspection of the rear bridge.
Okay.
There's an inspection.
And
of
that
the
was
rear
last
bridge.
year or the
That's
year
supposed to be
before?
this summer,
Oh, okay.
supposed to be this summer, but let me get hold of Mr. Bump, see if he can kind enough give me some time, and I'll schedule an appointment and keep you guys posted.
But let me send it to you, the email, because the names in the other email, maybe the person that contacted me.
Okay.
May have more.
Is that would be the trans person?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know you were contacted. Tom, if you're at another engineering firm that might be able to do a study as well.
No, I just have been, talking with folks I know at V-Trans, I've worked with them for a long time,
Okay.
just to see if we can have some other ideas. Because again, it's just not a great
Yeah.
situation.
No.
Yeah, and when I look at all the tourists taking pictures at the Gucci covered bridge, I don't think they realize they're on a steel, some concrete. Yeah, but that was an efficient way to get that bridge rebuilt after.
Yeah, sure.
Whereas if you look at the Castle Bridge, that took a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Longer.
Queechee Bridge that went out with Irene was a cement bridge with a barn built over it too.
Yeah.
Right.
Which I know.
Yeah, lots of them. Three Corners intersection, I reached out to Rita, she's been very, very gracious with her time. The question last meeting, the schedule for the project is sort of vague. She came back, we've tried to ask Knox for more detail, but this version is all they're going to generate at this time. The other question, has a meeting been scheduled to meet with the abutters? We have a meeting this Wednesday with the project. And once that's done, she will start scheduling a meeting with the abutters and with the town, and the public meeting will come after the abutters meeting. What signage will be done on the interstate for the project, she wasn't sure. She forwarded this to Chris Bunce, and he has a jurisdiction on the interstate, and I haven't heard back from that either. Katy Brook restoration is going to start this month. I put in the emails about what's going on, the 3 bridges that are going on. Next Monday at 9 o'clock, we're meeting at Katy Brook Trail to walk and look at it. If you want to join us, please come on out.
When's that?
Next Monday at 9 a.m. So that'll be the 8th. The Vermont State contract we've gone over. The ARPA yearly report was completed on Tuesday. It was part of the project, a task, because I wasn't the ultimate to do it, the ultimate signer, so it was a task. I started the Thursday before to get it going, but I believe her name was Sarah from Two Rivers was Sarah, yeah, she was just absolutely incredible, her patience. I signed the contract today for the pipe contract for paving Clay Hill. It'll come on this fall. It'll be pipe, as I said, just a touch over $260,000.
For how long? How long?
I don't know.
I'm wondering how far 260 goes nowadays.
Probably about 6/10 of a mile.
I believe the goal is to replace all pavement on that end.
Wow.
So.
Yeah, all but the hill.
To the-
Oh, I don't think they're doing the hill. I think they're going, I think the way Bill talked, it was just above the hill.
Well, hill means major repair.
I think we should clarify that.
Yes, yep, I will find out. Yeah.
This one is already, this is a question.
It's in the budget.
The fiscal 24 budget.
Yes, that's correct. 280,000, I believe, is in the fiscal budget. Might be 260, but I think it's 280. I think we upped it. And it came in at 262, 263. And that is all I have.
I'm reminded that we could need that study of the Cucci Road to happen within the next year.
Yes, yeah, we're getting on Or actually, I'm remiss, when we go into executive session, Jim, would you do the evaluations first? I get them reversed on the.
Yeah, we're gonna have to figure out the strategy there, since we have two different topics to cover.
Right. Motion to move into one, motion to move out, and then motion to move into the
Any
other.
action?
Right, yeah.
Make a motion.
Yeah.
Not-
Yes, yeah,
Okay, is there any correspondence?
I had none.
Future agenda items.
So if we're going just on the Key Brook trails, nothing the town has to do, there's no contract or anything.
No,
It's
they
just-
got funding and took care of it, and it's,
Thank you.
So they're taking out 2 stone bridges and replacing them.
culverts, 3 holes.
We did have a presentation in the last year from the Arctic Natural Resources Conservation.
Yes, you did.
Yeah. And you mentioned, or she mentioned about others, so is anyone going to contact?
She
them?
said she's gonna take care of it, yes. And they knew it was coming. She said.
The future agenda items, I'm not sure I know what the set schedule is for commission and committee updates.
We should be all set with that.
Yeah, so we had Rob, Jay, and Sarah here at one point in March, right?
Right.
And I think the suggestion is that, you know, we should have at least some schedule where we invite them in to give updates on what they're working on, and what they might need from us.
Oh, okay.
So,
I was thinking appointments.
I was too.
the appointments are.
So invite them to like every quarter or something like that?
That might be too frequent, we're just thinking more twice a year.
Okay, all right. Now I know what you're looking for. I'll put that in my schedule. And then the motion to distribute monies from the highway surplus to cover the overage for the Three Corners project, that was discussed December and January before the RFP was put out.
So here's my understanding on this. So we voted on moving forward with the NOTS proposal, right? We know that the bond is gonna cover up to a certain point of this project.
Correct.
And then we'll have to go to the highway reserve fund to make
Highway
a
surplus.
surplus fund to make up the difference.
Highway surplus,
Surplus, yeah.
yes.
So in the research I've done, yeah, we have 2 VLCT orders, one that said you should definitely vote to distribute money from that fund. And another who said, who's in the finance side, said that it's a gray area, but I would recommend that you vote to distribute money from that fund. So I just wanted it on the radar. You know, I think there will come a time, it's not today, you know, it's when the bond money runs out, that we'll have some bills to pay, and we should take an action at that time to distribute whatever money is necessary.
Can you make a motion now to do that?
We probably could, but we don't know the number.
So it's on future agenda.
So,
Okay. All right.
So your next meeting if you want.
yeah, so I think what we should be doing, Martin, is maybe, then, you know, with the board's consensus, is presenting the budget for the first project on a regular basis and say, here's the bond money, here's the bills that we paid so far, here's what we expect to come in.
I can put that
So,
in.
yeah, so we at least have a tracking mechanism to know,
Mhm.
you know, when we're getting close.
Right, yeah, well, after today's, it'll be $230,000, $230,000. Today's was 168 and we sent Green Mountain Power 85,
I feel like
so
there's
that's
another, I
250,000.
feel like there's another one.
There's been some small VHB bills, but I didn't see it for those.
Plus, we had already spent $100,000 or so.
That's
Okay, so. Without
Future
diving
agenda, yeah,
into a
right.
future agenda,
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page that as we enter into the intersection project, it'll be very important for us to be aware of the fiscal or the project management sort of perspective, and any delays is changes scope. Okay, so we have 2 executive sessions, one to update the group on personnel issues, and the second is to make a decision on the candidates to discuss what decision we would like to make on the candidates for the River Commission. And now, and now have a executive session. So, am I correct in that?
That is correct. So the bottom one, yes, please.
So I'll make a motion to move to executive session to discuss committee appointments pursuant to 1 VSA, section 313A3.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Nice.
Aye.
Okay, so we've exited executive session,
Yes.
and is there a motion?
Yep, I will make a motion to appoint Dan Nelson to the Mount Ascutney Subcommittee of the Connecticut River Joint Commission and Sarah Cohen Wood as alternate to the committee.
I'm sorry, second. Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Martin, would you let them know?
Sure.
And out of courtesy, just CC Rob
I will, absolutely.
on that part.
Good.
Okay.
Because I'll make a motion that we move to executive session pursuant to 1 VSA 313A1F to discuss attorney-client communications.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.